coming through. I'm Jenny O'Neill. I'm the PPMA theme lead for Future Workforce, and I'm introducing the session today. This is one of a regular series of lunchtime slots that PPMA run free for their members as part of a membership offer. And today's event's looking at employee relations during organisational change. It's being hosted by Andy Shettle from Selenity. And Andy is going to be talking through things that are on offer from Selenity that can sort of support organisations during organisational change. We've got 30 minutes. We'll have a sort of, a short section at the end for questions and answers, but if people have got questions that they want to sort of put in through chat as we're going along, please do that. The session's being recorded so that we can share it on with other members. And if you can put yourselves on mute, I think that most people are on mute, just so that we've got sort of a control over that throughout the session. Okay, so without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Andy and Andy will pick up the presentation from here. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody is well. I'm just going to go across, you should be able to see my screen and now I'm just going to stop my video while I'm presenting. So if I'm looking up or down, it doesn't look too odd or anything like that. So, right, I shall start going through the slides. So, minimize. So, going to talk about through employee relations during organisational change. And a lot of what we're going to talk about has been a lot of it's observational research, what we've picked up. Especially this year, but also over the last 7 years, what we've picked up and what we've learned while working with organisations. So ER Tracker itself is used across the public sector quite heavily, and we also have it in the commercial sector. So we've got a lot of NHS organisations, local authorities, central government, arm's length bodies of the government. So hopefully we'll be able to talk with a bit of detail about what we've picked up, which would be quite good for yourselves. So I head up the ER Tracker product at Selenity. So I've been involved in with the product itself from its inception to where we are today. Travelled the country many times meeting customers. So hopefully what we'll go through today will give you a bit of a knowledge share. So we're going to go through and just do an overview of the ER case management landscape. What we've picked up, how we've summarised that from our journey. We're going to touch upon the current climate, which I think is absolutely important. It's very much how it's impacted us both professionally during our working lives, but also the impact it's had privately as well on our private lives and things. There's a massive impact that's had, so it's worthy of a few minutes talking through what we've picked up along the way. Touch upon a bit of business strategy and then data-driven approach to improvement. So please do ask questions. I think there should be a place to ask questions within the Zoom meeting, and then we'll pick those up towards the end if there are any questions. So the ER case management landscape. So I don't know how many customers, or prospective customers we've met over the years, but it'll be probably nearing 500 who've attended multiple conferences and exhibitions, the PPMA, HPMA, CIPD events, and many others. So we've met over the years probably thousands of touch points with HR professionals, and we at a high level believe when we meet customers and we talk about how do you manage your employee relations cases, it's probably overwhelmingly 70% of organisations use spreadsheets. So there's probably no real surprise there. That everyone has access to spreadsheets. Most people understand the fundamentals of how to use a spreadsheet, and they're fairly adaptable in the sense you can add a column and things like that. And the cost involved is obviously pretty much zero cost to use a spreadsheet. So we can see why they are predominantly used. 15% of organisations have no formal system. They just use a bit of paper, shared folders, nothing really formalised. This is how we do manage our cases in this organisation, which is quite worrying, I suppose. Some organisations, not very many, use some sort of generic case management software. Similar to IT help desk, those two are normally pushed upon, say, the HR teams, the IT department say, oh, we use this, you could use a version of this and maybe change a few little bits to make it work for you, and similar generic case management software. And very few people we ever meet have already got, say, a more formal, dedicated ER case management product in place. So overwhelmingly spreadsheets, no real surprises, and more alarmingly, 15% don't have any formal systems, which obviously brings risks into the organisation and to the HR processes by not having anything formalised. So when we talk about HR systems, we start breaking it down into what's called like proactive versus active case management system. So we talked about a spreadsheet. They are very much active. You've got to go and find something. You've got to find out what's overdue, what's to do, how long are things taking, what's my priority for today or tomorrow. You've got to do things manually typically to do something. So it's very much what we call an active system. Whereas more dedicated systems are more proactive. They advise you. They don't want to shout from the rooftop, what do you need to do today? So they're telling you, informing you, this is coming up, this has gone overdue. This is the information you requested to be delivered to your inbox every Monday morning. So trying to automate, so it's more proactive system. We also break it down into different dimensions, so flat versus multidimensional case management. So flat information is a basic output. So you may have like an IT help desk system, for example, might be more flat when it comes to employee relations. So you have an outcome, who was involved in the case, the start and the end date. So very basic information. All systems try to give you this level of information, but it's quite flat. There's not much richness or much depth to this information. You can't make much analysis of this from that high level of information. If we then start looking at more multi-dimensionals, we can start breaking it down and exploring what were the outcome of the various stages along the way. Is there a correlation between the first stage and the last stage? How long did each step or stage take? We can start trying to drill down, trying to make improvements. So if the same step is always taking longer than it should, why is that? What can we do to improve? And if you have those reasons for delays captured, we're in a really strong position to say, right, if we do A, B, and C, we're going to start improving the resolution time for that step, and hopefully ultimately give employees, our colleagues, a better experience and meeting deadlines. There's nothing worse than a case dragging on for an employee involved in a. It's really, really important about to capture this sort of information. What's the root cause? Why have we got 25% of all grievances in a particular area all relate to working conditions or terms and conditions of employment? So if we start having the allegations, what's going on, we can start doing a bit of root cause. What can we do to improve that? Do we need to be aware of a more bigger cultural issue or something like that? What's the time and the cost involved? Often your case may take 3 months to resolve. So you've got your beginning and your end, but it's not 3 months full time. But how much time during that 3 months did we take to actually manage it? Were there any costs involved in the case as well? Maybe external costs, internal costs, building up that richer picture. And then again, we want to know all about the employees involved in the case. Where do they work? Do we have issues in a particular area? What are the employee demographics and things like that? So we're really building up a multi-dimensional approach to case management and understanding all the various facets involved in the case. And if we plotted these onto a chart. So, for example, this is obviously a chart that we've created, but what we've tried to get across here is that some systems will be, for example, say active, and some will be proactive. Some will be very flat. Some will be multi-dimensional. And when we start plotting that, where do they appear in there? So things like a manual system, which you can probably guess is going to be quite flat and quite active because there's nothing formal about it. Spreadsheets, a bit of multi-dimension involved, but certainly not an active system. They don't ping your emails, they don't alert you to a task that's due and things like that. And then you get your more specialised systems of case management, IT help desk, and ER case management system working their review the target zone. So from an ER perspective, we want something that's proactive. We want something to help us day to day, and we want to report out lots of rich, colourful information that we can start to improve and build upon to make things better in the organisation. So the current climate, so it's definitely worth to go through some of this. And we've spoken to a lot of our customers during this time, keeping in touch, seeing how things are going. And we've offered a number of our customers, all our customers actually, a free case type to manage COVID-19. So they had the ability to start capturing who's had or who's got coronavirus, who's maybe suspect got it and maybe not confirmed, a family member, and they have to isolate, so family members got it. So we got a number of healthcare customers, public sector customers, and a number of these have to report up through their organisation into reporting bodies going to the central government. So or at least our customers are telling us, is that they're going to see a spike, and I personally think it's going to be a rather large spike. Is we got from the from the first wave, the first pandemic, things have settled down a bit, but it looks like again, if everyone reads the news, you'll see now it's likely to creep back up again, and measures are being put in place now to reduce that. And again, we'll find that we have another told us that number of their cases were postponed during the pandemic. Some of the customers were saying that we're only focusing on cases where there's a likelihood of a dismissal or a serious sanction. So a lot of cases were put on hold, except for the most serious of cases. So there is a backlog potentially of cases that need to be picked back up again. Cases we suspect will be linked to how decisions are made during the pandemic will rise. So maybe grievances. So how was furlough handled in organisations? Maybe not so much in the public sector, potentially the furlough side of things, but more in the private sector. How was it handled? Was it done equitably? Were people advantaged or disadvantaged deliberately? All reorganisations during the pandemic. Organisations within a few weeks had to make big decisions. We had to move people from HR to manning telephones, for example, on the front, supporting the organisation. So how was that handled? Do people feel there's something gone amiss there? Are they aggrieved with what's gone on? Likely and sadly, there's going to be a number of people with PTSD or some sort of absence cases due to stress of managing the situation. Being on the front line, I can imagine that's going to be very stressful, seeing a number of cases and people being ill and so forth, whether that's in the NHS or social care, public sector. Generally, they've been at the forefront of keeping things moving. Sick or have been off sick with stress of managing the situation. And maybe a positive coming out of this and from the first wave is that a lot of organisations nearly overnight said, right, everyone's got to work at home now. So I think people now maybe are getting used to, and organisations possibly, where they're very much against flexible working or people working at home. That they're working, so some people might be clock watchers that you have to be in the office 9 till 5. Well, if they're doing maybe a bit less hours at home but still producing the same output, is that acceptable? So I can imagine there's going to be a lot of requests for flexible working, maybe when we get back to as near normality as we can, whether that's next spring onwards. People saying, well, actually, I do like the work-life balance now. It means I don't have to travel as much or get on a train or a bus to my place of work. I want to work at home a couple of days, so it gives them a better work life. So I can imagine that will increase, and I see that's quite a positive, really, for employees having that ability to have a better balance. As I mentioned before we joined the call, there's other feedback customers have been telling us is that where they may have had grievances being logged, say before the first wave, about employee relationships and how people work together, and where there may have been some friction and frustrations and challenges. Well, actually, the pandemic has brought people together to work more closely and as a team and as a common purpose. So I think there has been, again, some other benefits, maybe the intangibles coming out of it, that hopefully will hopefully work in the favour of HR, not having to deal with as many cases possibly, but they've got more of a team spirit now in the organisations. Reorganisation, restructure. So this is something that's going to be coming up, especially across the private sector, but ultimately the public sector maybe at some point is going to have to reorganise, maybe some downsize some departments, but still have to deliver the key public services. So there's going to be changes coming up. We all know how much the government spent on things like furlough and other schemes to keep the economy ticking over. That money's got to be paid back at some point. The things will change somewhere, and again it'll be coming back down to what's key public services and how can our organisation respond to that. Maybe some of the retraining will be another aspect that will come out of this as well, where people's jobs will need to be changed to something else. So again, quite a lot of feedback where we've picked up along the way of how it's impacted and the HR's role moving forward in this. So business employee relations, case management feed into business strategy. So as I mentioned, we work across all different sectors, including charities as well, which I didn't mention. And quite often, the reason organisations contact us at Selenity, want a demonstration and proceed with the system, is all being triggered by an underlying event leading to or wanting to transform to something different. So sometimes that's due to poor improving their absence management. And that's not necessarily getting people back to work quicker when they're sick. It's about meeting the policy deadline. So it says within 5 days you'll be referred to occupational health. We're doing so within 5 days. We're not leaving it 7 or 8 days. So we're doing what the policy says because we have better visibility of information. We know what we're needing to do. So their cost savings were based upon reducing bank and agency spend and having less reliance on external resources, and getting people back to work a few days quicker. And if you imagine that over hundreds of cases, that's lots of days, adds up to a lot of money. So that's how they've approached it. And that was what their trigger was, to have to improve absence management. One that's getting more popular, I would say now, is improving colleague or customer care. So internally, your back. People send an email, they want quick responses back. People are having that in their fingertips on their phones nowadays. People are expecting a quick response and a better level of service. And again, I think people see that with systems, and HR wants to deliver better care, better customer service by having a system where they can keep track of things and cultural changes. So perhaps where issues exist, like maybe there's a culture of bullying or harassment, it helps increase transparency and consistency. So some of our customers, they confidently tell us, we need something in place. We need to improve consistently how we manage cases. We need better transparency. The unions, want to see things improved in that area. So some of our customers want a system so they can be confident in the organisation's management that cases are being managed fairly, consistently, and transparently. Sometimes there's disengagement with employees, so having a system to start managing and tracking cases, we can start looking at like heat maps. Are there particular areas that there's a concern? And we've always had a concern, but we never really had anything to back it up. So for example, do we have a particular engagement issue in a particular department for a particular age and things like that? So we can start drilling down and see what is it there? Is it an engagement issue we need to tackle? Again, we don't always have the answers, but we know there may be some underlying issue that we need to explore further. One of the big ones quite often is lack of reporting capabilities. So that's the most common one. So we will go meet a customer, a prospective customer, and we'll just ask them, how do they manage their cases now? How do they report information? What grievances open. So the lack of reporting is another big achievement that people want the system for, is to be able to provide more in-depth information. And as with anything, when you start providing more, people want a bit more again, which is really good as a journey on the analytics side that people go through. And probably more recently now, and especially in the last 3 or 4 months, I think we've probably noticed this, that organisations are contacting us, either customers, existing customers, or new customers, saying, we want the system to start managing and tracking organisational change. So from the initial consultation, maybe to a redeployment situation. So to start going through with the manager and saying, well, what's the business case for the change? What are you looking to do? HR maybe approving that with the organisation's management, and then going through with each employee. I think we'll see more of those coming up over the next 6 months or so, more organisations wanting to use the system to manage and track the organisational change going on in their organisation. So a data-driven approach for improvement. So often information doesn't tell you what the problem is, but it highlights areas for further analysis. As I mentioned, like pockets of engagement. Do we find that, in a particular department, males aged between 18 and 24 seem to have a disproportionate number of disciplinaries raised, or a number of grievances logged by them? Why is that? Maybe the manager's not used to dealing with like the millennial generation. Maybe it's that generation don't know how to conduct themselves in work, for example. Whatever it is, doesn't always tell us what the problem is, but it tells us we need to look into it further. We have a particular business unit or department with the highest clients are now opting and wanting to start documenting lessons learned. So in the system, you can create a field to start putting your free text notes in. What can we do better? What can we do to become more efficient as an HR team while better serving our customers? So if I had a really complex case, if that came in again, what would I do differently this time? Obviously, each case has its own unique merits and things like that. But as a principle, what can we do? And then start sharing those lessons with the HR team. So I think it was probably a couple of days ago, a customer I was talking to was saying, can we run a report on the lessons learned for grievances, disciplinary, sickness, or whatever, and start sharing those during team meetings? And the answer is yes, absolutely. You should be doing this. We want you guys to start logging all this and improving and making yourselves better. And the big driver for improved case management is nearly always, as I mentioned about reporting, is nearly always a desire to have more information available. Everyone wants information. We can't make the best decisions without being informed, without having this available to us. So quite often, especially in the public sector, monthly board reports, what's going on in the business relating to people. How many grievances, how many disciplinaries, what's the sickness cases, and all these sort of information. You want to know like a barometer of what's going on. CEOs are wanting more people-related information to inform their decisions now. We see more and more CEOs on Twitter nowadays engaging and things like that, which is really great. So they do want increasing cases and issues elsewhere in the organisation, performance, financial performance. I'm sure there is a correlation. So again, it gives people the organisation a chance now to delve into that information and share it against other data sets as well, and data warehouses. So there certainly seems to be a desire now to build up that picture of plugging HR information into organisational wide data. So just a very brief summary. So a growing desire to provide improved colleague customer care, wanting to look after employees more, wanting to engage with them, make them feel valued and looked after. Often information doesn't tell us what the problem is, but it highlights an area of concern, something that needs further analysis and review. And then evolving beyond I think I just dropped off there, so hopefully everyone can hear me again. So if you do want more information about Selenity ER Tracker, we do have a web page for PPMA. So it's www.selenity.com/PPMA. And one of my colleagues will be in touch and go through if you have any questions following the webinar. And there's more information on our main website, selenity.com/case-management. So I see there's a few questions that have been raised. So I'll go and have a quick look and pick those. I don't know if I can actually see the questions or not.
We've got a couple through, Andy. Thank you so much. While you're sort of just pausing to maybe kind of take a quick look through those, I'd just like to say thank you enormously for that. That's really interesting, a really useful reminder of how important employee relations data is in underpinning the sort of like you say, the sort of the temperature map of the organisation, identifying areas that may need to be sort of delved into in more detail, and also new trends that are emerging, particularly when we've got so much organisational change going on at the moment. Really important to be able to have that data and help the organisation answer questions emerging around people. And thank you also for the role that Selenity play in sort of sponsoring and supporting PPMA. So we've got a couple more minutes. I think that Sue may have had a question. Sue, do you want to raise your question?
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. Andy, I was just wondering about how configurable the reporting was on demographics, and the reason for that question is in Greater Manchester we are currently reporting across sectors with a KPI that was determined by a third party, and it was quite prescriptive but important data that we recognise would move us forward around equalities. So if that kind of thing came through, would the system be able to cope with a specific reporting requirement that helped us be comparable with other organisations?
I think at a high level, I'd fairly confidently say yes. So, for example, as standard in the system, you've got fields such as ethnicity, gender, sexuality, disability, religion, age. Beyond that, you can also create any local fields that are specific to you and report on those. So if there's any other, say, protected characteristics or any other information, you can then create that field locally and then report on that coming out of the system as well. So we did just with yesterday, the customer in the Liverpool area, they had some demographic based reporting I was going through with them. So yeah, typically I don't see that as an issue. And again, public sector the Equality Duty Act is a very big thing. So yeah, absolutely, it's quite a popular thing. Popular, maybe not the best choice of words. Very commonly asked questions, shall I say?
Yeah. So can I ask another one, Jenny? Is that all right?
Of course.
What level can we drill down on? So, for example, if there was a potential for unconscious bias in a particular manager or in an employee relations caseworker, can a caseworker look at their own case track record, or can we look at a manager's track record?
Absolutely. So yeah, so it all comes down to what access roles you have and things. But yes, you could, for example, maybe look at consistency checking. So you could look at the opening reason for a particular HR advisor, for example, say you've got 10 cases with the same allegation, 9 cases had no case to answer, 1 case had a dismissal sanction maybe at the end. So why was there such a difference between them? So you could do that. Likewise with line managers, you can see how they manage cases, and is there some sort of subconscious bias going on there, and we can obviously have that backed up by, say, the employee demographics of the case and things like that. So all the information's there. It's just how you create the report, I suppose, to drill down on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Andy. Any more questions? I don't think there's any more that have come in through the chats. I think probably it's testament to the fact that it was a really comprehensive overview. So thank you again, Andy. And we're just about sort of done with our 30 minutes. So just a reminder really for PPMA members that we've got a series of these programs that we're sort of running. There's going to be a new schedule being launched in October, and keep a lookout for those. and have a nice weekend. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.